Thank you for joining this episode of 805 Talk, a show about what's happening inside the 805, with a focus on the Simi Valley and Conejo Valley communities. We bring you everything local business owners, nonprofit organizations, government officials, community leaders, and real estate. Here's our host, Jeff Landau.
It is April 24th, and I am excited to have Dina Braverman. Hey, let's edit that out. I'm excited to have Dina Braverman with me, and her company is Organizing Concepts and Designs. Dina and I met at the end of last year, which seems like about 5 or 10 years ago, doesn't it?
It sure does.
Just a couple of things have changed since then. I think Dina and I really clicked because we're both from the Northeast. And I think both of us just seem to have more in common with some people from the Northeast than in general. We just clicked right away over a coffee. And it so happens that we have some complementary businesses, and I was able to bring Dina in recently. I have a client in Woodland Hills that is going to be moving into assisted living in Thousand Oaks, and they just need help. They need help getting their home ready. They need help packing up and organizing. I thought of Dina, introduced her, and my client has thanked me 5, 6, 7, 8 times for the introduction. So you know that, Dina, right? They're just thrilled with you. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So why don't we start with helping our listeners get to know you a little bit better, specifically with how you help people prepare their home and get their home ready for selling.
Well, the first thing we do is when we meet a client, we find out who their realtor is, because we want to work with their realtor to make sure that we're doing the right thing. Sometimes the realtor will want certain items in the house to stay in the house for staging, for photographs, for their marketing materials. And so we first kind of meet with the clients and the realtors to make sure that everybody's on the same page. Then we get to work with our client, figuring out where they're moving to. If they're moving into a smaller space, we're going to have to downsize. If we're moving into a space that's maybe similar, there's still a downsizing component, because when you're moving, nobody really wants to spend the time and the money packing up things that they no longer need or want. So I think that the first step is always kind of a downsizing, or as many people like to refer to it these days, we call it right sizing.
And I think this client had a layout of where she was moving. Did she share that with you?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, so she did show you the space that she was moving into. She's probably losing at least 500 square feet, if not even more. And she was helping you. She was asking you for help in like what furniture she could bring, how it would lay out, what should go into storage.
So that is true. One of the things that I like to avoid at any cost is storage. I believe that if somebody's moving and they no longer need something, that selling it, donating it, using it, or tossing it are really the only options. Once you put something into storage, it becomes the abyss. And very rarely do people go back into storage and get things out because they don't need them. If they're in storage, you don't need them, really. I mean, especially if it's somebody who's downsizing because they're getting older. There's just no reason. They could give it to loved ones. There's so many different options rather than storage. So I really try to steer them away from that option. But yes, a lot of the times when people do know where they're going, they will share a layout of their new surroundings, their new residence, so that we could kind of go through the house and figure out what's going to work in their new place and what won't. And again, if it doesn't work, then we have to figure out what's best. Is it an item that can be sold? If not, can it be given to a loved one that might need it? If not, can it be donated? And donations have their own whole requirements as to what can be donated and what can't be donated, which I'm, of course, familiar with. And then if it can't be any of those options, then we toss it. We haul it off to a recycling plant, and we do try to recycle whatever we can so that we are environmentally conscious and responsible.
And I think I had misspoken. I actually think that this client had started donating or giving away some of her furniture, which actually caught her a little shorthanded because right in the middle of her home prep, we came across the pandemic, and that put her move on hold. But her furniture, some of her furniture was already out. So that's the way that goes. We certainly couldn't see that coming.
But for them, and for most people, really, it doesn't matter because most people don't need everything they have anyway. These people didn't need what they had. So in this particular situation, it worked out just fine, and they now have the room to navigate their own home to, it was cluttered and they didn't have the space to maneuver. Now they do. So I think it was actually great that we got a good head start on this project, because when this is over, and it will be over, we'll be able to move them sooner than later.
And what you just said is the reason why I brought you in so early. They were thinking that they might move in about 6 months, and they are older clients. They have some compromised health that they needed to work around, and compromised energy levels. And I encouraged them, which they thought was a great idea, to have you come in a lot earlier than we normally would have, so they could pace themselves over what they want to keep, what they want to trash, what they want to donate, and actually take their time doing that.
Absolutely. And I think that is so important, because I always tell my clients, and it doesn't matter how old they are, if you're moving, you want to get ready as soon as you know you're moving. Sometimes it's 6 months, sometimes it's 60 days, but the more time you have, the better. Life gets in the way. Obviously, now we're facing a pandemic where everybody's on lockdown, but in normal times, and maybe even in the new normal times, people need time to go through their belongings, especially when they've lived someplace for 10, 20, 30 years. It's not something that you do overnight. Usually the garage is full. That's one day. And nobody really wants to spend 5 days a week doing this. So usually people will spread this project out for, once a week, to work with me once a week, 4 or 5 hours at a stretch. And that takes time, the attic, the guest room, the drawers, the garage, the office, all that paperwork has to be gone through. So, I think starting sooner than later is definitely the way to go. And especially whether you're moving because you have to or want to, it's stressful and it's daunting. So to take that kind of stress out over having to get it done sooner than later, it just is everything. People have enough to do when they're moving. So earlier, the better.
Awesome. And before I do want to spend some time with you on this show discussing what people can do to create the best home office environment they can, and maybe some things that they can do while they are home more during this pandemic. I don't want to get off a certain topic that I want to ask you, which is, do you have specific services for seniors, or is what you do just part of what you do geared towards seniors and helping them either organize to age in place or to downsize into assisted living?
Yes to all of the above. We do not specialize in seniors. I think that seniors, like everybody else, have the same issues. So let me break it down into 3 different answers. Yes, we help people age in place. And the way that we do that is by making sure that their current situation is safe. So somebody who wants to age in place is probably in their later years, and they might not have the space in their house currently to navigate if they were to come home from a hospital or from a surgery with a walker or a wheelchair or some other medical device. So we try to make sure that they, we remove rugs, throw rugs, which are a danger to elderly people. We sometimes require or recommend that they have grab bars in certain areas, perhaps the shower or the bathtub. We look around and we do make recommendations, but to help people stay in place, the more organized they are, the more space they have, the better their homes will accommodate their new needs. So the second question was, do we specialize in seniors? No, we don't, but it's a very big part of our population that we work with because most of them are downsizing, whether they're staying and aging in place or they're moving into smaller quarters. Many of those people are baby boomers, so they're 65 and older. And as far as, organizing, everybody needs organizing. Doesn't matter how old you are. So,
Hallelujah.
yeah, it's just everybody that I have ever met hits a brick wall at some place, at some point in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So it may be the paperwork. It may be the garage. It may be that you haven't been up in your attic and still can't get up into your attic. And it might be because someone that you love or know has passed on and you have no idea what to do with all the stuff in their house. So our services are, in my opinion, invaluable to everyone at some point or another.
Thank you. So now geared towards where we are specifically on April 24th with the pandemic in our area, Ventura County, Los Angeles County, we have our stay at home orders where unless we're in an essential business, we are working from home. And we have no idea how we are going to get phased back into whatever our new normal is going to be, although I think it's relatively safe to assume that we are going to phase in as opposed to just someone's going to flip a switch and say, okay, back to normal, nothing ever happened. So in order to add value for our listeners, can you share ideas or tips on what people can do to create or improve their home office environment?
Yes, absolutely. So, we're all moving home and even if we had a home office that may not have been as efficient as it could be, I think now is a really good time to make that space. Whether we stay at home or not, all of us seem to work from home at one time or another also. We all have someplace where we pay our bills, maybe, someplace where we work after hours or on weekends. So everybody should have a functional and productive office space. And the way we work with our clients, and by the way, in this new era, we do offer virtual organizing. So for those people who are uncomfortable having people in their homes at this time, if they want to reach out to us and have us walk through how to do this virtually, we are offering those services. And it just requires either a FaceTime application or a Zoom meeting. So whatever works for them, if they are tech savvy, we can work with them. So, the first thing that I think of is you have to find a space in your home, a space, and it could be even a closet that is converted. If you go onto my website, you'll see pictures of closets or areas converted into closet space. Some people don't want to give up the closet space, but sometimes it's a good option. If there's not enough room in the house, perhaps you put up a divider, but something that you can call your own, a space that is essentially for office work only. I think that most importantly, it needs to be comfortable. It needs to be a place that you want to go and will go, because if it's not comfortable and you're not going to be comfortable working in there, you're not going to go in there. Many of my clients have very dark spaces that they've allocated for their offices, and they wind up working on their couches because it's just there's not enough sunlight. They feel like they're in a coffin. They feel, claustrophobic in there, so they don't utilize it. So we want to get you into space that makes you productive. I recommend a place with a window so that you can look out of a window and look out into the world. Some place that has the room for what you need. So what do you need? What do people actually really need in an office? You need your computer or your laptop. You need quiet space, or at least headphones that will block, noise canceling headphones that will block out the noise in your surrounding areas. You need a desk so that if you're putting things on your desk, there's room for them. The average workspace that I set up is not an expansive desk. It's a desk that will allow you to keep your computer or your laptop, not both, a cup of coffee or water.
That's essential.
Exactly. Something to write with and something to write on, and have your office supplies next to you, near you, some place where you can reach them and access them easily. So, your paper clips, your stapler, your staples, rubber bands, extra pens, highlighters, have those things in a desk drawer where you can reach them and you don't have to keep on getting up, because every time you get up to get something, you're losing time from your day. So you want to be productive and efficient.
Awesome. Love that.
Right. I think that you need to have a filing system, even for people that are going paperless, because we're really not able to be completely paperless. Right now, people still need hard copies of documents like original birth certificates and marriage certificates and social security cards, driver's licenses, divorce decrees, etc. There's so many, I can go on and on, but we must have physical hard copy papers still. I think that there needs to be an area near you where you can keep your important files next to you that are important. And that can be in a desk drawer. That can be in a plastic bin that holds files. It could be on a desktop organizer, depending on it could. So there's a lot of different solutions that you can implement in your office to stay organized. I think it's important to keep a schedule. I think that while we're working at home, I think we should still be getting up at the same time every day, getting dressed, putting on clothes. I think that changes our mindset, that when we get out of our PJs and it doesn't necessarily have to be a formal suit, but you get dressed and ready for business. It makes you feel better, and your work product will be affected by it. I think your mindset will also be affected by it. So a schedule is important. I think having a to-do list and staying on task is essential. You're not in an office with a bunch of other people anymore where they're telling you what to do. You're following systems that have been already put in place for you. So you have to put these things in place to, for success. And that's something else that we can help with. We've been doing it for 10 years or more. And efficiency, productivity, and functionality is everything.
Thank you. Thank you. You gave me some things to think about, because my space could be better organized. Are there any organizing tips that you can offer to the person that may be a little challenged in that area, without actually like being in their space or in their room to specifically address something? Is there anything in general that can help people?
I think so. All right. So things that I didn't mention, and I think, this is all part of it, is I think working from home, right? You need to set boundaries. I believe that you should do as you would do if you were working from your office. And even if you've always had a home office, set boundaries. Take your meal breaks. Step outside, get some fresh air during your meal break if you can. Don't get distracted by social media. Check your email 3 times a day. Don't go down that rabbit hole, because it's just gonna distract you. Make sure that others that live in the space know that you're working. If you have to, put a do not disturb sign out on the door. Let your kids know that you're working, unless there's an emergency that needs to be tended to, that you're working. Create systems, filing systems. You just ask, what can people do that aren't typically organized? If you're piling papers, it's just not going to work. you need to get your files vertical, however that looks. That can be a desktop organizer, that could be a desk file, but once your papers are organized, even if they're better organized, if they're vertical, it's easier to see and get to. It doesn't have to be fancy. They don't have to have proper labels. You can write on the tabs what they are, but filing is really important. If you are paper challenged in that you just don't know what to do with it, again, we're available to help you with that. It's not that difficult. I have videos on my website that tells you exactly how to do that.
Awesome.
It doesn't have to be right. It doesn't have to be challenging or just it can be easy. And I just think that you need a basic filing system. It could be alphabetical, it could be numerical. Just keep your files together. If you don't know how to keep something, or if you don't know how long to keep something, which is a lot of people's problems, is they don't know how long they need to hold on to certain things. So instead of throwing things away, they just put it aside and it piles and piles. There's the IRS.gov will tell you the IRS retention guidelines. So if you have any questions at all about how long to keep something, it's right there. Just Google it and it will help you. And there's two different websites. One is for personal retention and the other one is for business retention. They are different. So that's helpful. And I believe communication is everything. I think that if you work with other people, that you should stay in communication with your colleagues and coworkers and bosses to find out what's going on, what's needed, how you could do your job better. Maybe it's a technology thing. So, there's so many different ways that people could stay organized at home. And we would love to help if anybody is finding it difficult.
I find something very, very interesting about your answer, and maybe that's a reason why I like really try to come in empty-minded to these conversations, because your answer just now was completely not expected. When I'm thinking, what are some organizing tips? And you didn't come across with, well, get color-coded, folders and do this on a desk and do this on a like I was actually thinking it's going to be like nuts and bolts filing cabinet and desk and a little thing and a big thing and drawers, and you were coming across from a bigger picture how people can approach that.
Well, I think that everybody has a different way of being organized, and everybody's level of organization is different depending on who you are and how you operate. So there's no cookie cutter way of organizing. I can walk into your office and do something one way and walk into somebody else's office and do it completely differently. Some people want everything away. They don't want to see anything. They're minimalistic. And then there's some people who are very creative and they need to see it, feel it, touch it. It needs to be out. So everybody's way is different. I'll tell you what is significantly the same no matter what I do. And that is, whether it's in or out, can be seen or not, one fundamental organizing tool is, remember, keep like with like. So it's easier to find it when you need it. So, for example, all paper clips should be in one place, whether it's in a box or a baggie or a plastic container. Just keep those items together. All like items should be together so that you know what you have, how much of it you have, and then when you run out of it, you know what you need. But that's really the only fundamental thing. And if you take it out, put it away. Maintain the systems you put in place. And I guess one of the ways that people can start getting organized, if they have the wherewithal and the time, is to, and again, these videos are all on my website, is you have to empty the space. So if you're organizing a drawer, for instance, just your drawer, take everything out, see what's in there, toss what you don't need, remove those items that don't belong in there. Like you might have, packages from takeout food in your top drawer, which is essential for your office supplies. Put it in the kitchen. So purge, remove, put like with like, and put it back. And you don't need any,
Awesome.
yeah, and you don't need anything fancy. You could use checkbook boxes. You can use small boxes. You can use Tupperware. So none of it is expensive. It's all in your house.
So that's a really big takeaway for me from a how to start standpoint, is because I am guilty of accumulating and saying, oh, I may need this at some point. I think it's because my parents were raised by parents from the Depression area, if I want to use that as an excuse and be a victim. So that's really helpful for me the next time that I start, which will hopefully be this weekend, is to empty and then go through what I need and then how to best put it back, whether it's in the same spot or to put it back differently.
And start small. Like don't think of an office. Think of one drawer, one closet, one shelf at a time, so it's not overwhelming, because
Nice.
it will inevitably become overwhelming if you start doing large areas at a time, especially if you're not used to doing that. So one space at a time. Start small, and you'll get the hang of it, and you'll feel accomplished when you finish that one area, and it feels good and it's better organized. Some people are organized, but it could be better organized.
Thank you. The other takeaway from what you had answered earlier was to organize vertically. And as you're saying that, I probably missed the next minute or two of what you were saying, because I was picturing how I am the opposite. I am like spread out, just spread everything out so I could see it all. And then there's probably something that I haven't touched in a month or 2 or 6, 12,
Right.
like
That's
a long
right.
time. And I'm thinking, and I'm really grateful to be walking away from this with some actionable items that I could take right away.
So I'll give you one little filing tip that I like to use with people who have so much on their desks, and we know it's not going to all get done in one session. I mean, it took 6 months to get that way. It's not going to take 4 hours to undo this. So one thing that I can tell you is, if you get a desktop organizer, something where your files can be vertically stored, there's 4 or 5 different categories. So for those things that you need to follow up on, put it in a follow-up file. That means that you're waiting for things that those are the things that you're waiting for. Things that you've already called about, talked about, you're waiting for it. Then there's things to do, things that you actually need to take action on. Then there's a file that should be called bills to pay. And then if you're doing your personal work and your business work, I would have a business to-do file and a personal to-do file. Well, the other thing that I might have on there as well is events. So if you have kids, you have a family, and you've got a lot of events and things, you could put in this events file things like calendars, schedules for school plays, for your kids' soccer games. You can have wedding invitations in there, so everybody knows where those things are. Of course, put those on your calendar, but those are the hard copies of the events that you might be attending. Keep it simple. Keep it simple.
I can't help but laugh right now, because I'm thinking about my wife, God bless her. She's always trying to help me organize, and she bought this really nice looking wood inbox. So I'm like, okay, I started putting things in. That's one of the last things that I'm getting to in my office right now while I'm cleaning it up. I'm gonna find some things in there that's been there for years. So to have it vertical and have it separated by topic is very helpful for me, and I hope for everybody else listening.
And never, here's another real good tip, never have a file named miscellaneous, because everything will wind up in miscellaneous.
Exactly.
You don't want to overextend and have 1,000 files that are unnecessary, but you also don't want to have a miscellaneous file,
Right.
because really you want to break it down so that you can find it easy, right? It's all about functionality and accessibility. So break it down. And again, how do you name them? You name it how you will remember it. How I'm going to remember something is going to be completely different than you're going to remember it.
Awesome.
So whatever works for you is going to work.
Thank you. So you've referenced videos on your website many times. Can you please give our listeners your website and any other contact information that you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you. So the website is www.organizingconceptsanddesigns.com. And you can reach me anytime. My name is Dina at 310-560-5060. And you can check out the website. There's many videos, how-to videos. There's blogs about how to do things. It's very informative, and we're always here for you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dina. I appreciate your time. Hopefully people listening will get a little bit more organized in their workspaces and use these tips and call you if they need anything.
Thank you so much for having me. It was so much fun.
Awesome.
It was a really fun show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you do have any questions about real estate, please reach out. You can reach me by phone at 805-341-0398, or you can find me on my website as well at jefflandauhomes.com. As always, thanks so much for listening.
Thank you for listening to my daddy's podcast.